Hey everyone, my name is Alan Dick, and on behalf of my fellow co-founders, Scott Silverman and Veronica Sonsev, as well as the rest of the entire Commerce Next team, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today is Wednesday, April 24th, 2024, and the topic this week is how to build and execute a composable commerce roadmap that drives revenue growth. Before we go any further, I'd like to welcome and thank today's speakers. First off, we have Andrei Rebrov, the CTO and co-founder of Scentbird and Mock Ambassador. Daniel Diliberti, CEO of SomStation and another Mock Ambassador. John Miller, he's a Chief Technology Officer and VIP of e-commerce at Discount Dance Supply. Sven van Hagelsom, he's a Customer Value Director at Commerce Tools. And Toby Hellebrand, Senior Director of Technology Strategy at Applied Digital. Now, some of you may have noticed that Andrea Stube from Commerce Tools is missing from the lineup. Unfortunately, she fell ill and can't join us today. So Sven will be filling in for her. Andrea, if you're watching, I hope you feel better soon. Certainly miss having you here. Moving along, I want to thank Applied Digital and Commerce Tools for sponsoring today's broadcast as well. Couldn't bring these webinars to you without the support of our sponsor partners. And I also want to note that it has been a real pleasure working with their teams, especially Richard, Shannon, Toby, Sven, and Andrea. Thanks to all of you for helping us put this together. I also want to thank our staff. We've got Veronica, Scott, Jill, Maeve, and Robert, all of whom are off screen helping to make this webinar a success. Robert's feeling a little under the weather as well today, so he feels well. Seems like the ick is going around or something, but I hope both of you feel better. But as always, and most of all, thanks to you, the audience, for joining us today. Really love having you here. I'm going to start us off by mentioning that our next webinar takes place on Wednesday, May 8th. The topic, how to use AI to craft an authentic and profitable customer journey. I'll be moderating that one as well. Applied Digital is also back with us, along with executives from Michael Kors, Adorama, Ulta Beauty, and Big Commerce. You can register for that one by clicking on the link in the chat. Speaking of things coming up, the Commerce Next Growth Show, our largest and most comprehensive show ever, takes place from June 11th to June 13th in New York City. We're putting together a monster lineup of over 120 speakers, including top executives from Church & Dwight, Uniqlo, Walgreens, Brooklinen, Shine, and so many more. Just go to commercenext.com or look for the link in our chat to apply. Moving along. I want to remind you that our YouTube channel has almost 400 videos counting topics including acquisition, retention, leadership, retail technology, and so much more. It's a great resource. Learn more about our YouTube channel by also visiting the link in the chat. Got a lot of links in the chat you should check out. Of course, we're recording this webinar and we'll email you. We publish it later this evening. Next up, we always take a moment to remind everyone to find things that you need to get the most out of this webinar. 4 tabs are in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. They're chat, Q&A, polls, and handouts. Use the chat tab when you want to communicate with other attendees or offer a shout out to our speakers. The polls tab is where you can participate in the audience polls and review the final results after we close the polling. The handouts tab is where you have today's presentation and other useful information available for you to download. Got 2 good ones for you today. Definitely worth your time to take a look at. The most powerful tool, however, is the Q&A tab. Think of this as your steering wheel, allowing you to drive the conversations by posing the questions directly to our speakers. Think of our panelists as your personal expert focus group, ready to offer their insights to you. As far as I'm concerned, no question is too small or challenge too big to raise with our panel today. You might notice that everyone in that discussion group, everyone in that focus group, they're getting gifts. Well, you can too. To help fuel the discussion, our good friend Brian Monahan, the CMO of Redcon One, is generously providing a full box of their MRE protein bars with free shipping to any location in the US to every audience member whose question we select for the panel discussion. Now, take it from me, the German chocolate cake and cookies and cream flavors are great for hikes. It's a great gift. Ryan, thank you so much for doing that. Definitely appreciate it. Now, remember, even if you don't have a specific question, you can still participate by upvoting other audience questions. This helps us prioritize which questions to present to the panel by letting us know what's most important to you. Lastly, you're watching this on the replay, please note that the handouts are available by clicking on the highlighted document icon in the video player, and the audience poll question results are available via the polls tab. Now, before we bring on Toby, who's going to chat with us for a few minutes, I need to give you some context. On the last webinar, we asked you what you wanted today's panel to discuss. Number 1 on the list was a perennial favorite, getting buy-in from decision makers. This really resonated with the panel, and especially with Tovi Hellebrand, the Senior Director of Technology Strategy at Applied Digital, and our speaker for today. He's decided to tackle this head on. So let's bring Tovi up. Come on, let's get up here. All righty, sir. How are you?
How's it going, Alan? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you taking on this topic in the depth that you did. I know you've got this as a handout in for everyone to download. So yeah, make certain you do that. Tovi, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, sure. Okay, so let's get going. I'm gonna thank you Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention and joining us here today. I'm gonna kick this off with probably about a 10-minute talk, and everything that you see on screen as I go through my presentation will be available to you as a handout. There's quite a bit on the screen, so don't focus on that. I'm just walking through at high level. So first, a little bit about Applied Digital, the company that I work for. Applied Digital is a global digital transformation partner for change agents. These are the people within organizations that are our ideal customer. We are a high-touch, strategy-led solutions provider with practices in business transformation, products like standalone products, commerce platforms, and something we call the lab, which is essentially a playground, non-billable, where we have experts in AI and all sorts of interesting tooling to do things so that we are actually ready to be deployed into a specific business context with really cutting edge solutions. So why are we here today? We're going to talk through very high level the situation that you find yourself in, C-suite personas, allies, neutrals, and resistors, so actually grouping the different personas within the C-suite, and then strategies for engagement. So let's get into it. Who are you? You are a change agent, likely either at the director or V level within your organization, and you've caught the bug. You see the potential of digital transformation. You see the potential of composable commerce because you are well in tune with the executional and the operational levels of your business. And you believe that integrating best of need digital technologies in all areas of the business is the way for your organization to win and to propel your own career forward. But it's not that easy. How can you just start doing these things, right? It involves significant changes in process, culture, and customer interactions. It requires substantial investment and strategic oversight. And one of the biggest hurdles is securing buy-in from the C-suite. The members of the C-suite themselves typically have varying priorities. They have their own concerns, which need to be addressed, and their own visions for the company's future. So how do you actually go about getting buy-in from the C-suite as a change agent to secure the necessary buy-in? So I'm going to walk through a little bit about each of the characters in this C-suite and then how you kind of stitch this all together. So let's start with the CEO. The CEO is right at the tippy top of the organization, of course. Their priority is to ensure there is clear communication of their dictates all the way down the ranks. So if you think about that, the implication for you is they need to be fully bought into this vision. If they are not sponsoring you, then you're not going to actually get the most out of the investments that the organization chooses to take on. The CEO must be fully bought in. I cannot stress that enough. So their other concern is creating lasting, durable business advantages. So that's part of the pitch of bringing the CEO along. For the CTO cares about future fit innovation and technology so that the business itself can keep up with the market. The CTO also cares a lot about outstanding developer experience. And typically a CTO is very well aligned with the business and is well versed at describing the value of what they can build. So they're a very strong natural ally for efforts like this. The CIO, if you have an organization where there is a CTO and a CIO, the CIO is typically more inward focused. They care more about, their remit is more about technology and processes that are for business users, and the CTO is more externally facing. But if there is a CIO, they typically want to get out of this perception of being seen as a cost center within the organization. They don't want to be seen as a support function, and they desire to be a strategic partner for the business. The CMO bottom line cares about providing best-in-class customer experience, about increasing share of wallet, and branding, so the external perceptions in the marketplace of your business. The CDO, also a very strong natural ally, the CDO cares about influencing organizational changes to meet the challenges of disruptors and transformational efforts. They care about um, evangelizing digital across all functional stakeholders and being that integrative connective tissue through the organization. And they care strongly about building agility, speed, and data liberation across different functions. The chief product officer cares a lot about core KPIs being evangelized across the enterprise and that everybody's working on the same shared goals, and cares a lot about answering questions for, are we doing the right things for our customers and for our strategy? The chief operations officer cares ultimately about, how do all of these proposed changes affect my already overwhelmed staff? The chief revenue officer cares about hitting their targets and hitting their forecasts. The CFO, this is the hardest person to win over and requires different tactics to actually win them over. But ultimately, they care about realizing on ROI now and not further fueling IT maintenance budgets that they don't fully understand what it's going towards, least of all revenue. They care a lot about margin protection, cost reductions, and they tend to be very less interested in how all of this is done. They care about what it's actually going to do for the bottom line. So, kind of seeing the patterns through the C suite, there are potential allies, there are neutrals or conditional allies, and there are also resistors. These are the potential allies. I'm just flashing them up on screen. Again, you've got the takeaways so you can read through them. The CDO and the CTO are probably the strongest natural allies. The CTO will get excited by the tech alone. The CDO will see how this actually enables the whole business to rally around technology. The CMO is usually a strong natural ally, but may actually be a neutral in the sense that they just care about doing what they want to do. They're less excited by the technology. And the CIO also could play two roles. It could either be a strong ally or a opposer. We'll get to that soon. For the neutrals or the conditionals, think of what you have on screen here from the CPO on the left to the CRO on the right as a spectrum. The neutrals, we'll just leave them on screen here. And then for the potential resistors, the CFO, you need to be very crisp with business casing. The CEO, they need to understand how it can actually drive their vision. And the CIO, they could be resistant because of legacy tech and sunken cost fallacy, and if the change itself is not initiated from within their ranks. So you have to watch out for that. In terms of strategies for engagement, there are three things offered here. Leverage your allies. Specifically, you need to win those allies over because they will be invited into rooms which you are not invited into. So it's important that they are able to evangelize and advocate for what you believe is best for the business when you are not there. I would recommend actually continually peppering them with things that would fuel their excitement and keep their support for you intact. In terms of the neutrals, work on converting them, talk to them, understand what their needs are. You can win them over, for example, a COO in terms of operational efficiencies. And for the resistors, you have to work on mitigating them. So, for example, the CFO, get very crisp on cost benefit analysis, how you can deflect costs, how you may think about OPEX versus CAPEX. There's all sorts of strategies you can work with them about. Ultimately, this is not meant to be a perfect airtight recipe for how to do it. But what I would recommend above all else is you need to increase your at-bats, meaning don't get stuck in a situation where you only have one chance to make this pitch and either it succeeds or it does not. Try to have many one-on-one conversations before any board or C-suite presentation that you may be doing, and try to break down their concerns and make sure that what you are showing them to win them over actually speaks directly to their needs. So with that, I thank you for your attention. And if you want to connect with Apply Digital or myself, we do this stuff all day long. So thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you, Toby. I appreciate that. All right. So let's do this. Let's bring up my slides and let's head over to the polls. So I want to, for our first poll question, I'd like to tailor this talk to you a little bit more. We talked about who the champions and drivers are. Let's see who they are for you specifically. So my first question is, who is the champion and our driver of strategic e-commerce technology decisions at your company? Who's the driver? Is it the CEO and board? Is it the CTO, CIO? Is it the e-commerce P&L owner, maybe the chief digital officer? Or is it really championed or driven across more than one function area? It's kind of what I expected. I think it's what Toby referred to. It is definitely the e-commerce P&L owner or chief digital officer. About half the respondents are there. We see the second ranking one is championed across more than one functional area, and then the CEO and CTO kind of come in last. So that's chief digital officer. Let's close that one. And this is what we typically see. Scott asked this very same question a while back, and it's exactly the same thing. We don't see any change in this. About a year ago or so, Scott asked it. We saw that the e-commerce P&L owner, the chief digital officer, was the primary driver of strategic change. Then again, it was championed. Second place was championed across or driven across more than one functional area. So cool. Thank you very much for that. Next up, question number 2. What are your top two goals, for adopting composable commerce? Is it A, to increase operational efficiency or reduce costs? How about enhancing customer experience? Maybe you want to expand your market reach. Fourth answer is product or service innovation, or is it the ever popular drive revenue? Interesting. I was not expecting this. So enhanced customer experience is the number one answer, coming in around 40%. We see increase operational efficiency and reduce costs coming in at 28%, and drive revenue. I would have thought drive revenue was coming in first, but it wouldn't. It doesn't. It comes in a really good third at 22%. So enhanced customer experience is the number one answer at 39%. Increase operational efficiency and reduce costs is 30%. And coming in third is drive revenue at 20%. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Moving along. Our final question concerns our May 8th webinar, how to use AI to craft an authentic and profitable customer journey. This is with Applied Digital, Michael Kors, Adorama, Ulta Beauty, and BigCommerce. And we want to know, question number 3, for our next webinar, what AI insights or strategies do you want our panel of retail experts to discuss? Now you can select up to 3, so we make sure we have a good variety. Is it, do you want to build trust with AI? How can we use it to foster genuine customer relationships? I know there's a lot of discussion around that, so I wanted to lead with that. Is it simplifying AI for non-tech savvy marketers? This is a discussion point that came up as well. How about improving operational efficiency? Perhaps you wanted to measure success. How about overcoming the challenges of implementing and using it in the first place? Or is there something else you want us to discuss? You can put that in the chat. All righty, let's take a look here. I think it's a tie between simplifying AI for non-tech savvy marketers and improving operational efficiency at about 29% each. And then the coming in third is overcoming the challenges of implementing and using AI at 21%. Measuring success is a distant fourth. And then building trust didn't pick up a lot of response here, only about 4%. Very interesting. Thank you very much for that. That helps guide our discussion. Looking forward to seeing you on that webinar. All right. How about we bring up the panel? All righty. How are we all doing? We're doing good. Toby, thanks again for that discussion. So let's go around here and let's start introducing folks. Where do we want to start? Let's start with Danielle. I'll start with you. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and the perspective you bring.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I am Danielle Delaberti, CEO and co-founder of Somsation. I have been with Somsation since we built the business. 3 years ago, we just had our third birthday, and we concepted the idea just slightly before that. I think one of the unique things about Somsation is that we are completely built on a composable ideology. As a business that's only 3 years old, we have the benefit of really thinking about the future, and technology changes and moves so fast that that's really a part of our strategy from the get-go. So I thought Toby's slides about, who's going to resist are interesting, because I would have agreed with that 2, 3, 4 years ago, but since stepping into CEO, I can politely say that I disagree, because I do. But I do think that I'm one of the few, and I know that because I've spent the last 15 years on the finance and investment side of the house. I actually started my career as an auditor, and so I got into the weeds on technology and technology spend, which led me to a curiosity of continuing to leverage it in my professional career. And so with that, I've been a part of early stage investments, as well as a part of really thinking about what a transformation means and what some of the trade-offs are. So I've been, around the block a time or two on a lot of the things that we've already talked about. So I look forward to digging in a little bit more.
Excellent. And I see your webinar companion is in the back of your display here. We love dogs here. Yeah, so we are very happy about that. That is a benefit, not a problem. We like that. That big heart shape's there. Mr. Miller, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. I'm the CTO of Discount Dance. We're the leading online retailer of dance clothing in the country. I'm going to steal something from that Andre had said the other day. I guess we were Composable Commerce before it was called that. I apologize for stealing it, Andre. It was a great line, though. But we did come from a monolithic architecture years and years ago, but over many years we have basically implemented Composable Commerce just for the flexibility and the experience that it provides. The number one result on that second question about customer experience, ranking higher than product revenue. Customer experience really drives product revenue in a lot of cases online. And that's one of the reasons we do it too, is because it can provide a much better experience. Different components can provide a much better experience than you get in a monolithic architecture where maybe everything is not best of breed, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a great observation. Andre, are you going to tolerate this theft of your intellectual property from John?
I did give him credit.
No problem. I always have a spare one. So my name is Andre. I am CTO and co-founder of Sunbird, and we are a subscription service for perfumes, colognes, car fresheners, and other nice smelling things. And my second best line is that I'm the best smelling CTO, since we sell the best perfumes in the world. And as John already said, we also had to build a lot of things from the foundation, because when we started, there were simply no platforms that supported everything that we wanted to build. But the most important part is we had no idea what we were going to build, because as a startup, you pivot into the direction that your customers tells you need to pivot, and you have to reinvent and invent a lot of things.
All right. And last but not least, winning the award for calling in from the longest distance away from the United States, Sven. Thank you for joining us at such short notice. You have been quite the world traveler lately.
Yes, thank you, Alan, for this wonderful introduction. I'm Sven, based in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Amsterdam is a city, not a country, for those in the US that were questioning that. I work at Commerce Tools. Commerce Tools is a composable commerce platform, the leader in commerce, recognized by many of the industry analysts. And we provide all the components that are required to run outstanding shopping experiences across all digital and physical touchpoints. In this way, with our platform, we help to enable leading brands to achieve their business goals faster and at a lower cost. And in my role, I help to articulate the positive business outcomes for our prospective customers. And I do that for our prospects across EMEA.
All right, great. So we do have a wide variety of perspectives here, and I'm going to try to dig into and take full advantage of all of that for our audience. I see that some of the questions are already coming in. I appreciate that. We will definitely get to them. I want to start, before I tear into securing C-suite buy-in. I want to just ask the retailers, and then Sven, to get your kind of 30,000 foot perspective, and then Toby, I want to know what's the single most important benefit you receive from. I mean, I would think that that's going to be critical to making any cases. What's the benefit? So, Andrea, I'm going to start with you. Let's bring it back to you. What was the single best thing you got out of composable commerce?
I would say there is no more such thing as vendor lock, because we have a best-in-class player for each or maybe multiple functions. But if at some point we realize that this vendor either no longer satisfies us by the service level, or we now want to do something else and the vendor is not innovative enough to support our needs, we can simply shift to another one. And this is very important, especially in my role as a CTO, because I always have to look forward and see what we want to do in the near future. So having some legacies, having something that stops us from innovation is a big problem, and I want to avoid it at any cost.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite compelling. John, I saw you nodding there. What are your thoughts? What was the biggest benefit for you?
Yeah, that's really honestly it, is that we're not locked into any one vendor, and we can try different things. So if it's, I mean, I won't go into all the details, but if there's something you feel, you found something you feel is better, a lot of times it's fairly straightforward to do an honest A/B test. If it's not going to severely disrupt operations or something, you can always go with, best of breed doesn't always stay best of breed, right? For the life of the component. So you can definitely try something different. You have different tools for different needs. So why would you lock yourself into just one big monolithic architecture?
Yep. Great. Danielle, I know you had some, I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off? Sorry, I thought I heard. No, my apologies. Danielle, I know you had some perspectives on this.
Yeah, I think it's really similar, adding on to that, right? With you don't have a vendor lock-in, or when you have the ability to make systematic changes, that essentially creates flexibility. Flexibility allows businesses to move faster when the time is needed in order to do that. So a good example with Sensation is that we have shifted CRMs already in 3 years. And some people would think that's crazy. But it was because we already outgrew some of the capabilities of one CRM, and it was time to move quickly to another. And we could do that. What might have been, 5 or 10 years ago, a year-long project only took a few months, because we were able to shift our data and to plug in the APIs and make the configurations a lot quicker. And I think when you have that flexibility, especially for evolving businesses or evolving customer needs, which is, everywhere these days, having that flexibility is really critical to have a competitive advantage. Otherwise, you can get left behind from a strategic perspective.
Mm-hmm. Sven, Toby, let me bring you back in here. Sven, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think your retailers are looking for? Retailers are looking for. I mean, obviously, flexibility, not getting locked into vendors are key, but what else?
And so thanks, Alan. I think for many retailers, the world around them is changing at a rapid pace. So whether you're an online pure player with continuously evolving customer expectations and rapidly popping up other digital pure players, or that you're a brand that has a 100-year legacy that was built purely in a brick and mortar environment, everything around you is really changing. And the most prominent thing that's changing is the customer expectations. For me, composable commerce allows you to adapt very quickly to those changing expectations for your consumers and to deliver a seamless experience. Because maybe in your organization you think about specific channels from your history, but the modern customer, the modern consumer, they don't really care about probably what channel you handle them. And the companies that are leading, they really provide this unified or seamless experience to the consumer. But I think for me, the real return on investment, or ROI, is the rate of innovation that you can bring to your consumers.
Yeah, it just keeps coming back to flexibility. Toby, I'm certain they're going to be amening everything else everyone has said here. I mean, it's just good stuff, right? You need the flexibility. You don't want to be locked in. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say many people first become aware of this question, like, why should I bother? Because they're thinking about a website replatform. And that can satisfy the needs of that use case, but there is so much more you can get out of it. So I would give you a two-part answer, one from the tech side and one from the business side. From the tech side, it really is just better technology. So the time it would take from code commit to code deploy is just that much faster. But the business side doesn't care about techie stuff like that. Really what matters here is that for every business that is a software-enabled business, which is, I don't want to say everybody, but like many, many people, if that is you, it allows the technology side of the house to move that much faster / keep up with changing business needs. So just as fast as the business says, we need to move this way, the technology side can say, yeah, we're right with you. We're in lockstep with you. So that kind of organizational unlock is probably the most exciting hidden benefit that probably isn't spoken about enough, but that's something that many businesses who want to get the most value of this kind of investments will be getting.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you for that. I'm just seeing we're starting to get some questions in from the audience. I'm debating kind of which way to move in this webinar. I think before I went into buying, I wanted to kind of cover like, what is the benefit? What do you get out of it? And I think this question from Raphael William is pretty good. And I want to bring this up now before I start getting into how do you make the argument. At what point in the growth of your business did you realize you needed a more flexible commerce architecture? Was there a defining moment for each of our retailers on the panel? That's kind of a new question. Who wants to take that first? John, I see you giving this serious thought there, sir. Like the cogs are turning.
I know. Honestly, for us, and this is kind of what Andre said too, for us, when we started, our e-commerce journey, we were originally brick and mortar and catalog, traditional. When we started our e-commerce journey, some of it sounds funny, okay, for people that are into dance, they understand this. For people who aren't, they won't. There are products specifically around shoes that just, most of the platforms out of the box just don't handle really well. And now they do, but they don't, and so a lot of what we had to do was exactly what Andre said. To support what we were selling, we had to go to a composable model where we're taking pieces of things. The core is what we're working on, but then we're taking pieces and we're adapting to it. So it just kind of grew organically. And then there were things that just silly things, right? Like product reviews, right? Or are we going to really handle our own product reviews? Just a basic thing, we're going to take that and stuff. So it evolved organically, I guess is the best way to put it for us.
Andre, you got a thought on that?
Yes, I would say when we started, it was a moment of two trends. First trend was a subscription economy, subscription box for shoes, for wine, for food, for everything. It was back in 2013. And the second trend was recommendations and personalization. So we made it to what we loved, fragrances. And the question was, how can we build something that will supply perfumes personalized to everyone on a monthly basis, still successfully charge people, deliver this shipment, make sure that customer experience can do it fast. And again, we looked around and we thought, okay, we are not the first one on this market. We will ask bigger guys how they do this. And everyone we spoke to said, hey guys, don't follow our route. Don't use the platform X. They simply cannot support what you want to do, because they have a completely different roadmap. They are not interested in subscriptions. You are just better by yourself by building this thing, and that's what we did. And even right now, looking around, 10 years later, a lot of subscription players, a lot of subscription billing platforms or subscription commerce platforms, they still support a lot of things that for us are vital, and that's why we keep building a lot of new things. But now, instead of building a lot of things in-house. We rely more and more often on composable players when we know that they can do certain things better than us. But when it comes down to certain unique pieces of Sandbird, what makes us, we rely on internal development.
Danielle, I don't want to ignore you here, but maybe the moment you realized it was the very moment you thought of your company, because you're native to it. So at least from that standpoint, it's brand new. But it had to just be obvious to you that this is what you were going to do. So it must have been born out of some previous experience. Any thoughts on this? I don't want to force you into commenting, but you kind of have a unique, you got to build it from scratch. So there had to be something prior to that got you interested in it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was the case. And believe it or not, one of the key influences for our co-founding team to create SomSation the way we did dates back to some work that I did in a previous life in the insurance industry. So when you think about insurance and annuities versus direct-to-consumer wine, they seem to be worlds apart, when in reality, when you really think about the business model and the underlying components, highly data-driven, highly regulated, end consumers, a lot of parallels, and have done a lot of work in the financial services and insurance space as it relates to major transformations. And two of the biggest industries that have started to use Composable in ways that retail, e-commerce, and direct-to-consumer are really thinking about it.
All right, Toby, my spidey sense is telling me that you want to jump in on this. And normally I would leave this to the retailers, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Sure. So I feel like I want to chime in only because I spent a fair amount of my career on the retail side, client side. So what I would share is I think that you would know you're ready for this, both qualitatively and quantitatively. So quantitatively, you really could just look at your Jira instance. Go talk to the development side of the house, and you can measure how much energy is going towards entropy, like just keeping the lights on, right? So you can actually track how many of your tickets or developer hours are going towards feature work, things that the business or customers actually get value from, versus revenue protection work, such as risks, defects, and debts. You can literally quantify that on a bar chart if you want and say, here is the line, like above this line is too much, below this line, we're okay. You're the judge of where that line is. And qualitatively, I think one interesting way of getting at that is ask business stakeholders how they consider their technology counterparts. Do they consider them as strategic allies, or are they kind of a burden?
Mm-hmm. All right. So I want to move back to the main premise. The first question that we wanted to answer was around how do you make the case to the C-suite? And I guess maybe the first place to stop is asking the rest of the panel, what do you think of Toby's presentation? Was there anything that immediately stood out, or anything that you? Yeah, I know. Get ready. Here comes the brutality. So yeah, just let me know what you thought. I'm seeing a giant smile from John Miller here. So I'm now calling on you.
Oh boy, I keep getting picked on first.
I know. You're right in the middle of my screen. Like a
going
bunch.
on
You're right there.
Right? Yeah, you're not going to let me steal anything else. No, I thought it was great actually. As somebody who agonizes when I put together presentations, I thought that was fantastic, and the summaries were great. But as far as I agreed with pretty much everything in there. As far as how you said to talk to everyone. Quite a few of them rang true. Since I'm CTO, head of digital, I completely agree. I admit it. I'm a geek, right? In a different life, I was a CIO. So when I see new technology, it does get me excited, especially when it's around digital. So yes, that is a perfect way to get a buy-in on a CTO. And of course, with digital, they're going to worry about the customer experience and everything. So I totally agree with that. It's funny. I think you hit the nail on the head with CFOs. It's always hard to convince them exactly where the revenue is going to come from. And you're just saying you're throwing money out there, but you just have to prove it, really. That's one of the nice things is, if we're talking about a little past starting Composable, right? If you maybe you've done a few things or whatever, you can show that, look, it's, here's how we were doing it before, right? Andre said product recommendations, right? That's a great one. That was one of the first things that we did in Composable. And it was very easy to do an A/B test on that, right? And see, okay, here's what we were doing before, with what we had built in house, let's say, and here's what this component that we went out and got, and we did a POC, right? Didn't cost us anything in this particular case. We ran it for 2 months. We could prove that we were getting, I don't remember what the number was, but I'll say a 10% lift. That was very simple then to go to the CFO and go, look, we need to spend on this, right? But we're going to end up, we're proving we're getting a 10% lift. So.
All right. Anyone else want to jump in on this? Because I know I got a question for Toby. Don't let me bully you.
I can quickly jump on this.
I'm calling on you, sir.
So I would echo to what John just said about CFOs, because I've been working with our finance department very close for the last 3 years, and I would say in the times like right now, people are especially concerned with the budget, not increasing the budget, but the question, one thing that we don't usually consider when we talk about budget is the lost opportunity. How much revenue we'll lose if we simply cannot create something. And that also should be put into the calculation and also should be considered. But another C-level person and like all the people below is, you should ask yourself, if or when we'll implement this new shiny tool, whose life will be changed in the most significant way. For example, is it the marketing department, or maybe it's the ops, and how much they'll have to learn. So like the more they have to learn, the more resistant you will get. So this is the person with whom you should work the most, because you need to convince them that it won't, like, the disruption of the workflow won't be that significant. People will be able to learn and pick up new things very fast. There will be support from the vendor. So I would say this is very important when you plan your roadmap and what part of your legacy system to replace first.
It's kind of fascinating how many different angles you can slice this open from. Even just thinking about it from the numbers standpoint, you're right. Opportunity cost is a huge one, which should help overcome some of that resistance to, I've got all these sunk costs, winds up being more expensive to hold on to that. Danielle, I don't want to leave you out of this. I just love some of just the financial background you bring to this. And since we're talking numbers, any other arguments you'd make, any other cases you would make, or thoughts about the finances behind this? Because that's going to be a chief argument.
I could be here for 2 days talking about it.
I loved our talk. I really did. I could have been on that for an hour with you, just hearing what you had to say. So I really want you to jump in on this.
Yeah, it's a big one. And honestly, I always joke with my team, because I've been in the finance world for so long. That's always where my brain goes, because it really is such a big part of the equation that people forget about for a positive part of the discussion and negative, right? So when I have my CEO hat on, I'm trying to be a visionary and think about all the different places we want to go. And then my CFO, devil jumps on my shoulder and is like, well, this, and this. And I think that understanding the finance is probably the biggest thing. A lot of people think it's the CFO's job. It's the accounting team's job. It's the finance team's job. But really, when you make it part of your daily routine, it's a lot easier to really think of the trade-offs, and then you can start to make smarter decisions. Also have better discussions when you are, usually fighting with the finance people. So it's something I could talk about all day, but I won't belabor it, because I think what everyone said is pretty spot on already.
Cool. So what I'm going to do is I definitely, how do I want to say this? I want to move from making the argument to the C-suite, and I reserve the right to come back, because I do want to ask Toby about the neutrals. But I'm watching our time here, and I definitely want to talk about a concept that came up on our speaker prep call that kind of dominated the last half of that call. And I'll simply put it as speed, right? It's the speed of things. And our discussion fragmented into 3 areas. It was speed of implementation, speed of results, and it was also speed of business transformation. Each one of those goes from, it kind of goes from pretty rapid to maybe kind of slower, depending on where you are in the cycle. So I'm going to toss it out there, and I'm going to let Sven and Tovi take the first one. Let's talk about speed of implementation. You guys do that more than once, so let's talk about it. How is the speed of implementation, and what enhances the speed of implementation? What makes it go faster, or what makes it go slower? That's a jump question. I'm not going to call on you. No. You guys got to fight it out.
I was going to be polite and see if Sven wanted to take that first.
Nah, Sven says jet lag. He's a tired man, so we're going to come to him second. I want him to have a moment to formulate his response. So Toby, why don't you hit first, and then Sven will hit you.
Sure. In terms of speed of implementation, I think skeptics need to be challenged with their default position that this takes a long time or longer than however long they perceive. Naturally, going composable doesn't mean just doing one piece of technology. It's a whole ecosystem and putting that all together. Not to suggest you're rip and replacing everything in your tech stack, but it's probably not limited to just one thing. Regardless, there is an actual certification process for all of the tooling that we're talking about here. And the interoperability of those tools is really, really good. I mean, you need to qualify that for yourself, but having been in the trenches, it's very, very good. So I would say one of the most important factors in how fast you can actually implement this stuff is how practiced are the people doing this work at doing this work, right? Like if it's your first rodeo, it might take you a little bit longer because naturally you have to do some research. There's going to be more mistakes made at first until the flywheel starts spinning and you become really comfortable with the new ways of working, the new tooling itself, right? But if you are working with people who it's not their first rodeo and with technology partners, both vendors as well as the systems integrators, who work well within an ecosystem. They've created connectors. They've created their own pre-built integrations. Like it's all I'm trying to express here is that every day it's becoming easier and easier to plug in a whole suite of best of need solutions together to satisfy your own business context. I'm not saying create a monolith. Don't get me wrong, but it is becoming easier and easier and faster to do this kind of work the more people there are in the market.
Sven, I'm assuming you would agree with that.
Yes, I agree. And it's an area we as Commerce Tools have been investing in a lot in the past year to make it easier to adopt composable approaches with more pre-composed solutions and leveraging on accelerators from our partners. But I think it also depends a little bit of what you want to achieve and what your problem is. If you have an end-of-life solution, like a big platform that you need to rip and replace, then you need to do this whole big bang transformation to get everything out. But if you have specific business problems that don't work well at this moment, so for example, your checkout isn't working well, or product information, you have challenges around that, then the composability allows you often to gently strangle the old solution and realize value first by gently at a specific time by replacing specific capabilities that don't work. So you actually look at what problems man is solving first, replace that specific component, and generate value, and then iterate upon that. And via that, in that way, you can iteratively generate value for your organization, and also quickly show results that things work.
Exactly right. And that's the next issue here is the, well, let me get into Danielle. I mean, the legacy systems, to Sven's point, do take a long time, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I think someone had already said it, I think it was Tovi, but, new technologies are just built differently. That's the reality of it. Look at a smartphone, right? Think about 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's always the first thing I bring up when I'm talking to people that are challenging technology is just take something you use in your everyday life and really think about how it's evolved over the course of the last 10, 15, 20 years, and then apply that to your business. And when you think about big legacy systems, that was the way of life then. Now things are just different. So being able to have those conversations, whether you're starting small, whether you're making some big changes, you can get really practical on this stuff. And one of the things I say, which is, it's frustrating, but it's always like, well, it depends.
Yes.
And the reality is that's true. Every business is different, but then there's so many lookalikes, right? So really try to not put yourself on an island and try to boil the ocean or paint the entire sky. It's like, think about where else this has been done. Think about who else has been successful. More times than not, people want to talk about it and share in their lessons learned and not watch someone else make the same mistake. So being able to really lean into that and try to get practical can be a game changer, whether it's in a discussion, whether it's, choosing the solutions, things like that. Like sometimes we realize that we're managing, multi-million-dollar P&Ls, these massive budgets, and it gets down to like brass tacks, just be logical. And a lot of times you can really start to muscle through it.
Outstanding. Let's move. We're getting close to the time. I hate this. We just start getting cooking, and the time comes up. But I'm going to move to speed of results now. Andre, you would very definitely make the case that speed is not the goal. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yes, and I was actually going to say that I will be devil's advocate here, saying that sometimes platform is actually faster because you just check some checkbox or you install some widget and it works. The question is it the actual goal that we want to achieve? Because sometimes when people work for too long with platforms, they tend to think in patterns, and they tend to think in cookie cutter solutions, like one shape fits all. But as we see more and more today, e-commerce is not just about your finished goods. It's all about the service. It's about the communication. It's about the value-added things. And this is where each brand actually shines differently. And the reality here is usually platform won't be able to let you move this extra 1%, and the composable solution will do. And this is actually where we see this speed, because if we have a composable commerce platform, we can much easier and much faster get to the point where we want to go. In case of platforms, you will either have to wait for, a couple of years for the specific feature that you really desire, if it will ever come out, build some kind of workaround, or you will have to ignore it whatsoever and live without it. So in my opinion, speed is not the end goal, because we can very fast release things that nobody cares about. It's all about building the right thing and growing as a business and delivering the result that people expect to see.
Yeah, and John, when we were talking, you mentioned the whole concept of start slowly, manage those expectations among everybody, right? Come up with the clear goals. What else would you have to say about that before we talk about business transformation?
Yeah. Everyone, I think, assumes, it doesn't have to just be the C-suite. Everyone in the organization probably assumes that you put in a new component, or you're doing composable, and somehow you're going to magically get massive results right away, right? That doesn't usually work that way. You have to learn. You have to take small steps, learn what you're doing. But that also goes for, just because you are changing how your organization's working. Especially if you're doing something like what Alan was referring to as an example I used for, and Danielle had actually mentioned it too, our checkout, right? So we recently, in the last year, changed our checkout. We used a different provider, and we slowly ramped it up to make sure that, one, it was working right the way we want it to. Obviously we can test things, but until you get into the real world, you don't see what's going on. But it also helped with buy-in, because some of the biggest doubters were our customer service department, who were suddenly saying, oh, no, wait, you're going to change something that we've known and done for years, and bad things could happen here. It's like, well, we don't have to do this all at once. We can slowly ramp this up and prove to them that it's working fine. And then we're seeing better results as we're going, which also then helps us push further, and do it more. So, I think you can make, Andre made the comment too. You can start small and you can do little things, and you can prove that this is the right way to go on a lot of these.
But starting small doesn't mean it doesn't transform. And I'm going to move to Andre and then Danielle. And audience, stick with me. I am going to get to your question. I'm going to ask the panelists to stay for 5 minutes if it's at all possible. There's a couple of good questions now, but I want to hit this point. So we're talking about business transformation. We're starting slow. Andre, that was a big point during this discussion call. So I'd like to chat with you about that briefly, get your thoughts. Then Danielle, then we'll hit some audience questions. Andre, transformation.
Yes. So convincing the C-suite doesn't stop when you start your migration, when you purchase your tool. Everyone expects you either to succeed, or if you're a big enterprise corporation with a lot of politics inside, to fail. But that's a different story. Anyhow, you desperately need to have these wins in order to win people's heart and mind and more budget, to be honest. So in order to establish this path to big success, you need to start small with small pieces here and there. And this is where composability actually shines. You want to come up with new promotions for the upcoming holiday season? Great. Like, there is a composable solution specifically for that. You want to improve the way how you manage your digital asset between marketing, creative, and business development? Great. There is a tool specifically for that. And the list goes and on and on. And this is how you slowly transform your organization, because as we all know, the best way to cook the frog is to slowly boil the water. And this is what's happening here. You slowly achieve these small wins. People start supporting you more and more. You're getting more and more advocates in your organization. And that allows you to get to this point when you need to do this final piece of transformation. It could be either the product information model, it could be the checkout, or it could be your billing part. But at this point, people understand why you are doing this and how exactly you're going to perform this.
All right, Danielle, you want to jump in on that, or do you want us to move to the questions? Your call.
Given timings, why don't we move on? And I think just to plug, if anyone wants to go deeper on it, you can always find me on LinkedIn, and happy to carve out some time with this or any other question.
That's nice of you. I really do appreciate that. That's considerate. So we have a question from Scott Yoakum. The question is, using the motivations Toby reviewed by key stakeholders, is there a format that helps non-tech execs guide priorities for the roadmap initiatives? Using the motivations Toby reviewed by the key stakeholders, is there a format that helps non-tech execs guide priorities for the roadmap initiatives? That's a jump ball. Anyone can take that one.
I'll jump in, having worn a CTO hat and a CEO hat. One, I think I'll call it Toby's stereotypes are pretty accurate, right? We all know that. That's kind of how business is designed, and functions are real for a reason. But also they are stereotypes to some extent. And at the end of the day, you want to have really thoughtful conversations. One of the things that I've learned along the way is that the conversation becomes a lot easier when you're really trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes and think about the audience. I think from a retail perspective, we're always thinking about the customer. From a business perspective, we might not always think about our constituents or the other people. So if you just kind of reverse that a little bit and think about what discussion do they might want to have? Where are their pain points or the risks or the scary items for them? And start to address them in a way that's a little bit of baby steps. I think that a lot of times that opens up the dialogue and creates a little bit more of an open mind. And rather than present all of the reasons why, make it a two-way dialogue, ask questions as to why not. Start to say, what is the opportunity cost if we don't do this? And I don't want to say turn the tables, because that sounds, that has a negative connotation, and that's not the goal. But in order to kind of get people thinking and to, demystify some of the scariness of these technology considerations and shifting and moving to more composable, and really giving away control for some executives, I think getting people in the conversation and having them answer kind of the counter question creates a much different dialogue. And so that shakes up the format a little bit without having to create a net new train of thought. That's been a successful piece of the puzzle for me.
Anyone else got to jump in on this one before we go to our last question? Going once, going twice. All right. Good answer. Thank you very much, Danielle. For the last question from our audience, it's from Derek English. For anyone considering making the business case for transitioning to Composable, what was the one budget item you most miscalculated? Either not enough budget or too much budget for it, right? We're talking about, it's all about the budget. So yeah, when you were making the business case, did you ever see one that was either too low or too high? Real interested to see if there's any examples of that.
I think the
John?
developer people.
No, go ahead, Toby.
All right,
Oh,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I think engineers is a tricky one. And again, it speaks to the business's own experience if they're in-housing this effort or if they are outsourcing it. Or even if it's a combination, both in-house and outsourced. And it also depends on the maturity of the business and where you are on your transformation journey, where at first it might have to be overstaffed. It may not, depends, but based on those factors. And as you go, it may take less engineers than initially budgeted, just because they've been working in the tools for longer. They know how to get stuff done. They know how to creatively solution and be a part of the iteration instead of just being order takers and like executors of, airtight requirements. So that's something that like, it really depends. I don't mean to be cliched, but like on the engineering costs itself, it really does depend, but like it can vary wildly depending on where you are and who you're actually having do the work.
John, you were going to kick in on
Yeah,
that.
I was going to actually say something very similar. It's really the human cost on the engineering side. We've done things where 2 years ago we did a return solution that we thought was going to take, I don't know how many hours, I can't remember, but a significant number of engineering hours. It didn't. It was severely over budgeted. It was like when we looked at it, we thought, oh, this is going to take a while, and it was like, wow, that took about 20% of the time we thought. And then we've had other ones where it's, it just keeps consuming you. The more you do, the more you realize you have to do, and it just, it goes way over budget. The other thing I just wanted to throw out too is, sometimes it's okay to fail too, right? That goes along with budgeting too. We have had things where we put in components where it just didn't work the way we intended, and we backed away from it.
Okay. All right. We are over time, so I'm going to give Sven the last word here. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so on this topic, and it's also related to people and to change and speed. So what I think it's very difficult to estimate upfront what your changes will be in the future. So you can also it's very difficult to estimate how many people you would need. So as a company, you need to understand that you need to have a solution that's very flexible, that sets you up for change in the most effective way. It's all about getting live quickly, of course, but it's also what's beyond. Failing fast, reducing the time to money, because frankly, 9 out of 10 ideas from your business might not be the best ideas. So you only want to scale up those ideas that actually drive value and have measurable results for your business. Upfront, it's very difficult to estimate how many people you would need for that. So you need to think differently about that specific concept, just ensuring that you can change and adapt quickly to whatever is happening around you.
All right. And with that, thank you so much, Toby. Great presentation. I really, really appreciate it. That was very insightful. Well done to you. Sven, thank you for filling in here at the last minute. I hope Andre feels a lot better here. I say wishing well wishes to Robert so he gets better as well. Danielle, John, Andre, thank you. I know you guys are so busy, but you put in a lot of time and effort into the prep in this. And I know I appreciate, and our audience appreciates it. With that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to our audience. Thank you to Applied Digital and Commerce Tools for sponsoring this. And we will see you again in 2 weeks. I'm Alan Dick with Commerce Next. And from our team, thank you very much and have a great week. Take care, everyone.
Have a good week.
Thank you.